Hostiles. In 1892, a Comanche war party descends on the homestead of Wesley Quaid and his family. Quaid, Scott Shepherd, is killed as his wife and 3 children attempt to escape. All 3 children are hit and killed by gunfire as the family runs away. Quaid's wife, Rosamund Pike, runs into the woods and hides, still holding onto the youngest child, a baby, who is dead. The Comanche search for her, but fail to find her. In Fort Berenger, New Mexico, Captain Joseph Blocker, Christian Bale, captures members of an escaped Apache family and brings them back to the fort. Later he has a drink with old friend Master Sergeant Thomas Metz, Rory Cochrane. Metz appears weary from his long years of service and has had his guns taken from him after a diagnosis of melancholia. The men recount battles they have fought and friends they have lost. In the morning, Captain Blocker is called to the office of Colonel Abraham Biggs, Stephen Lang. Biggs informs Blocker that the president has ordered that Cheyenne War Chief Yellow Hawk, Wes Studi, who is dying from cancer, and his family be released so that they can return to their ancestral lands, Valley of the Bears, in Montana. Captain Blocker is told that it will be his duty to escort them and make sure that they get there safely. Initially, Blocker refuses the colonel's order, even when faced with a court-martial, recounting terrible things that he has personally witnessed Yellow Hawk do. Blocker also exchanges words with Jeremiah Wilkes, Bill Camp, an East Coast journalist who is also in the room, when Wilkes points out that the captain has also done some horrible things to natives. The colonel warns Captain Blocker, who is set to retire, that his pension will be at risk if he refuses his duty, and so Blocker reluctantly agrees. He is given papers signed by President Harrison that will guarantee safe passage. Block sets out with a party that consists of Chief Yellow Hawk and his family, his grown son Black Hawk, Black Hawk's wife Elk Woman, Yellow Hawk's daughter Living Woman, as well as Black Hawk's young son Little Bear, and a small band of soldiers, Corporal Woodson, a Buffalo soldier, Lieutenant Kidder, a West Point graduate, Master Sergeant Metz, who gets his guns back, and Private Philippe Desjardins, a young man who appears to be of French extraction. The party sets out from Fort Berenger. Once away from the fort, Captain Blocker stops their progress and gets down off his horse with a knife in hand. One of his fellow soldiers hands him a second knife. Blocker orders Yellow Hawk to come down off his horse in his native tongue. Yellow Hawk complies, and Blocker offers the old man one of the knives. The chief refuses the offered knife. Blocker then orders that the chief be put in chains for the duration of the trip. Further on their journey, the group comes across the burned-out home of the Quaid family. Blocker, Metz, and Woodson leave the group behind to investigate. They see Quaid's body still lying in the spot where he was killed. Inside the house, they find Rosalie, still holding her dead infant and sitting near a bed, where her daughters are lying covered by blankets, also clearly dead. She warns the soldiers to be quiet because the children are sleeping. Blocker and his soldiers go along with it, taking the sleeping children back to the group. Blocker tells some of his men to get shovels to dig a hole and to get Rosalie a clean blanket for her infant. She gets angry when one of the soldiers approaches her, telling him not to touch her child. She seems to come to terms with the fact that her children are, in fact, dead. However, she insists that she will dig their graves. She attempts to do so but fails. She passively allows the soldiers to dig the graves instead. Later that night, one of the native women offers Rosalie clean clothes, saying she would be honored if Rosalie would wear them. Rosalie accepts. Meanwhile, Captain Blocker is warned by Yellow Hawk and his son that the Comanche will keep following them and that they are all in danger because the Comanche will not discriminate between the white men and the natives. They want Blocker to unchain them so that they can help defend the group if they are attacked, but Blocker refuses. Another day, the group, now joined by Rosalie, are attacked by the Comanche. During the battle, Private Desjardins, Frenchie, is killed and Corporal Woodson is wounded. The native men, most notably Black Hawk, help as much as they can during the battle, seeing as they are still in chains. The Comanche who haven't been killed in the battle ride off. The group watches as Rosalie repeatedly shoots a dead Comanche until the pistol runs out of bullets. After making camp that night, Blocker orders the native men's chains to be taken off. During the night, Master Sergeant Metz relieves Lieutenant Kidder of guard duty. The two men talk briefly. Kidder says that the Comanche he killed in battle was the first man he had ever killed. Metz recounts the first time he killed a man, at 14 years of age, when he was fighting for the Greys, the Confederate Army. He says that, after killing for a while, it gets easier and doesn't mean anything. Kidder says that that's what he's afraid of. The next day, the group comes upon the remaining Comanche who have been slaughtered. Captain Blocker deduces that it was Yellow Hawk and Black Hawk, having slipped out of camp in the night, who must have tracked them down and murdered them. The group arrives in Colorado, where a wounded Woodson is given medical treatment. Blocker and Rosalie have dinner at the home of Lieutenant Colonel McGowan and his wife, Minnie. Mrs. McGowan, apparently unaware of what has happened to Rosalie, goes on about the poor treatment of natives by white men. Her husband angrily quiets her. Blocker asks McGowan if Rosalie can stay with them until she can find passage to wherever she may wish to go. McGowan agrees but lets them know that Rosalie will have to stay with them until Christmas, as there will be no one traveling through until then. McGowan pulls Blocker aside and asks him a favor. He would like for Blocker to make a stop along the way to drop off disgraced Sergeant Charles Wills, who is set to be hanged for murder. Blocker agrees. In the morning, Captain Blocker visits a recovering Corporal Woodson. Woodson is upset because he thinks he has let Blocker down, but Blocker assures him that he has never let anyone down and tells him that his father would be proud of him. They say goodbye for what they acknowledge will likely be the last time. As the party gets ready to leave, with the condemned Sergeant Wills and two news escorts, Corporal Thomas and Sergeant Malloy, in tow, Rosalie asks Blocker if she can continue with him instead of staying in Colorado. He agrees. Rosalie, having been supplied with fresh clothes, presumably by the McGowans, gives Elk Woman back the clothes she had been offered shortly after joining the group. Later, the group makes camp for the night. Wills is chained to a tree. He talks with Blocker, revealing that he served with Blocker in the past and that he recalls that Blocker did many things that he could easily have been punished for as Wills was being punished. Later, Rosalie and the native women are kidnapped by fur traders as they wash dishes at a creek. Alerted by Little Bear, Blocker and several of his men, as well as Yellow Hawk and Black Hawk, track them down. They find the fur traders' camp and witness one of the kidnappers beating Yellow Hawk's daughter. When the kidnappers return to their tents, the men sneak down into the camp and attack the kidnappers in their tents. Sergeant Malloy is killed in the fight. Later, Rosalie convinces Blocker to sleep in her tent during a downpour. At some point, Metz intrudes and Blocker talks with him. Again, Metz expresses his weariness, after which he goes to Yellow Hawk's tent, offering the man some tobacco as a gesture of redemption. Still later, Wills, who has been left out in the rain, feigns a coughing fit to coax Lieutenant Kidder into unchaining him. Wills attacks Kidder, eventually getting control of his pistol and shooting him dead. The gunshot awakens the camp and Blocker wounds Wills as the man escapes on a horse. Metz jumps on a horse and gives chase. In the morning, the group finds the two men's bodies. Metz evidently shot and killed Wills before turning the gun on himself. As the group finally reaches Montana, Blocker and Yellow Hawk, who is near death from the cancer, speak. Blocker names some of the men he had lost fighting Yellow Hawk. Yellow Hawk responds by saying that he had also lost people. The two men shake hands in an apparent mutual act of forgiveness. When they arrive at Valley of the Bears, they bury Yellow Hawk using a tradition native burial scaffold. An older man and three younger men arrive on horse. The older man informs Blocker that he owns the land they are on and that the younger men are his sons. He says that he wants Blocker and his party to all leave and to take Yellow Hawk's body with them. Blocker attempts to show him the papers signed by the president, but the man is uninterested and gives a dire warning. Rosalie points a rifle at the old man. The man says that he doesn't think she has what it takes to pull the trigger, at which point she does pull the trigger, killing the man. The man's sons and the soldiers exchange fire. In the firefight, Black Hawk, Elk Woman and Living Woman are all killed, as is Corporal Thomas. Two of the younger men are killed quickly, but one tries to limp away. Blocker catches up with him and uses a knife to dispatch him. Later, Blocker, Rosalie, and Little Bear stand on a train platform. Rosalie is set to board a train to Chicago, taking Little Bear, now an orphan, with her. She says goodbye to Blocker and boards the train with the young boy. As the train starts, moving, Blocker begins to walk away, but turns back and, after some consideration, boards the train as it leaves the station.